This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
Previously on the podcast, we've been discussing the key elements of your innovation mix. The three that I've been discussing: 1, organic, which is your internal R&D; 2, innovations from mergers and acquisitions, what some of you may be calling corporate venturing; and 3, co-innovation. This week's podcast, I'm just going to talk about co-innovation. Now, what is co-innovation? Some of you may be thinking in the back of your minds terms like joint R&D, maybe joint venture, customer-driven innovation. In my case, I'm thinking about it completely differently. Co-innovation is different from all of these. I define it as really being two parties with unique IP, patents, expertise, etc., that come together in a 50-50 funding of resources. That could be dollars, people, facilities, factories, whatever it might be. Key components are they have complementary interests. So what do I mean by this? Think of it in the context of your own interests. You define that as a group of areas that you're keenly interested in with your business. This potential co-innovation partner has their interests. And think of it as a Venn diagram. The objective in a co-innovation is to find where the Venn diagrams overlap. And that's where the area of co-innovation is. If you try to do it outside of the Venn, meaning maybe it's a customer who has a keen area of interest, they're waving some money at you, and you actually go out of your areas of interest and go to your customers' areas of interest, and that's what you do from the innovation perspective. That's not co-innovation. That's contract R&D. Now, you may want to do that. That's great. But call it what it is. That is contract R&D. Co-innovation means it's truly a 50-50. You find that common area of interest. Think of it in the form of a Venn diagram. Out of that, you agree on what the target is, who's going to be the ultimate customer or market for this innovation, what is it, and how do you go about doing it. The other key component to really be a successful or really to qualify as a co-innovation is that neither of you can do it alone. So it's not a situation where you've got this great idea and you go out and you get people to show interest and give you 50% of the money, and they're basically funding you to do 100% of that work. Again, that's contract R&D. In this case, it's something that you want to go do, something your partner wants to go do, and neither one of you can go it alone. This creates mutual dependency. And this creates a unique culture around this innovation program. It's not just some one side's idea and the other trying to convince the other one to give them half the money to get it done. This is something that requires both entities to participate in. And the last and most important criteria for my categorization of what I mean by co-innovation is that you're going to launch a real product. Not do some research, not write some papers, not do just some PowerPoints. You're going to launch a real product. And in my case, in my teams, that real product had to be on the shelf within 24 months. And that real product, whatever it is, it could be a product, a service, something, had to have high impact to both organizations. Not just my team, not just the other person's team, but the resulting product had to have high impact to both organizations. So again, two parties with unique IP, patents, expertise, 50-50 contribution. That could be in dollars, people, facilities, factories, supply chain, whatever. It needs to have structured around complementary interests. Using this Venn diagram analogy, you define the sphere of your interest, the partner defines their sphere of interest and things that they're working on, and you're looking for where that overlap is, where it's high interest for both parties. Agree on what the target is, who's the target, meaning who's the customer, what is it you're going to go do, and how you're going to go about doing it. The understanding that neither of you can do it alone. Create the mutual dependency for the success of this innovation program. Mutual dependency prevents any one party from being able just to randomly walk away midstream. You need the mutual dependency. And then last, you have to commit to launching something real. Innovation is about delivering something real, not just sitting around and thinking about it and doing whiteboards and publishing PowerPoint slides and publishing articles, etc. Launch real products. In the case of my team, that timeline was 24 months from the time we signed a co-innovation agreement until a product was put on the shelf. Now, if you set up co-innovation programs successfully, they have huge benefits to your organization. One, it reduces the risk. You're not going it alone. Two, it actually speeds up the delivery of innovation. In many cases, people think, oh, if I do it organically inside my organization, that's actually the fastest way to put innovations on the shelf. It's actually not. What I have found is with co-innovation, you can actually speed up the process of delivering those innovations to the marketplace. Why is that? Because you have this mutual dependency. You have two organizations pushing for you, and you have a committed timeline. For some reason, it's actually easier for innovation teams to disappoint internal managers than it is to disappoint external managers. Managers that are outside their organization that they've made commitments to. And by having this be really this codependency across both organizations, what I have found is both teams don't want to disappoint the other person's management teams. And this process actually drives a tighter bond and a more focused execution. The other is it just leverages your R&D budget. If you truly focus on a 50-50 funding model, then for every dollar that you put into your R&D, you're getting $1 contribution from the other partner. Both of you then get leveraged R&D benefits from those efforts to go into areas. And in today's days and markets, leveraging your R&D dollars is becoming critically important. Now, over the years that I've put together these co-innovation programs, there's a couple of lessons learned that I've come across, particularly around governance. How do you manage these co-innovation programs once they get underway? The one trick that I use, and I would encourage everybody to use this, is use your senior executive sponsorship to set the pacing. Whenever I've defined a co-innovation agreement, I've taken the most senior executive within my organization and the most senior executive in the corresponding organization. Typically, the two CEOs own and will sponsor these co-innovation programs. Once I've identified who that sponsor is, then I use them to set the pacing. In many cases, we set up face-to-face meetings every 60 days to review the co-innovation program. Why? It really didn't require these executives to get together that frequently, but when everybody in the team knows that the two CEOs are going to be getting together, next Friday, guess what happens? Everybody steps up and starts really making sure that they're making progress and they can show progress in this meeting. They don't want their CEO to look bad in front of the other CEO. And so I artificially kept a very quick pacing between these CEOs in order to drive both organizations to stay on track and deliver ultimately on these co-innovation programs. And so therefore, it literally pushes the team by using your senior executives as that pacing mechanism. Second, with regards to governance, is set gates and milestones. Set your gates, define what has to be delivered against to clear that next gate. Time that gate to be when the CEOs meet, so they all agree, we're going into prototype phase, so what's the plan? Did we finish the market analysis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And by that, then the team knows what the targets are. The key when you're working with two teams, your organization and somebody else's organization, is you have to have clear targets. If you don't have clear targets and they're constantly moving, people become very frustrated. They're frustrated enough within their own organization. You have to really take this to another level when you're dealing with a co-innovation program. You've got to get this very crisp, otherwise the frustrations just permeate. And then the other is share and show what you're working on. Take the early work that you've done, prototypes, etc., and put it out in real life. Go into the field, get real feedback, observe real customers using your real products. This is critical because if you stay inside the trenches too long, you become disconnected and the markets and needs can change. But more importantly, what I have found is when you get out there and you put it in real world life, the senior executives who are sponsoring it actually get more excited about it and become even stronger advocates for the innovation programs. So this could involve, going to a partner's facility or a partner event, your co-innovation partner, go to one of their events, set it up, show it to them, show it to their employees, show it to their customers. Likewise, do it at one of your customer events, maybe an advisory board meeting. But get out there and show it. And show the fact that it's the two organizations coming together to drive this innovation. And from that standpoint, you actually will drive much broader support within both organizations. And you get a little bit of a pride effect going from people saying, wow, look at the work that we're doing with Acme Corporation over here. And the two of us are really going after this space. And it actually helps reinforce to the employees in both organizations that the target area, meaning the product you're going to deliver and the customer you're going after, obviously must be a key area since both companies have agreed that that is an important area. Now, how do you get one of these co-innovation projects going? They don't start overnight, right? So one is you have to find the areas of mutual interest. This takes time. It takes lots of conversations. In my case, I would spend upwards of 3 to 6 months having regular conversations with the leaders of another organization. They would be sharing what their R&D plans are, what their innovation pipeline looks like, what the challenges they're facing in their business. Likewise, I would share what the challenges in our organization and what the pipeline looked like and what the R&D roadmap looked like. And out of that conversation, we would come together and find some nuggets of areas of mutual interest. Then I and a senior executive from the other company, we would actually set up a one-day session, a one-day workshop, where teams from both sides would stand up and talk about their areas of interest. Here are some things that we are keenly focused in where we think big opportunities are. Likewise, our team would do that. In this workshop, we would find the Venn overlap. We would do a Venn diagram. We would find the overlap of mutual interest. And then we would literally start to assemble the teams on the spot. Okay, you 3 people, you focus on this. You 3 people focus on that. And start working together as teams. Over the next 30 days, these teams would actually come back to the 2 senior executive sponsors and propose a target, propose a program to target a very specific product, service, solution, experience to a very specific customer base. If then the governance model, meaning the 2 senior executives, have a conversation, align, they approve the targets, and we're off to the races. Now, what I have found is once you've gone through this process once with your partner, subsequent projects go much, much faster. But you have to plan on the fact that you're going to be upwards of 6, 9 months to a year. I had one co-innovation program that literally took from the first conversation until we signed the first co-innovation project 3 years to get started because there were a lot of other issues. Finding that mutual dependency, finding the area of focus, making sure we had all of the elements of a great co-innovation project. I've just learned over the years that if you try to skimp on that, meaning, we'll call it co-innovation, but we really don't have anything mutual dependent. I could do it on my own, but this just happens to be a key customer, so I want to make them feel good like they're, quote, innovating with us. Those projects inherently fail. You have to have that discipline. Now, I took a lot of abuse holding off this key partner for 3 years until we can get a properly structured co-innovation program. But once we did it, man, we just cranked out these programs and had phenomenal success with the products that resulted from those efforts. So you have to have the discipline. But again, once you've gone through this process of having that kind of ongoing conversation with the senior leaders of your potential partner, and then doing this kind of one-day workshop and finding where your areas of focus are, putting together the teams, and putting together your governance model. Once you've gone through that once, it does go much faster. You just need to be honest with yourself about how long it takes up front to get those going. Now, when it's not done right, these things will blow up in your face. The problem in many cases is people want to call things co-innovation when they're really not. For instance, contract R&D. A lot of companies, particularly in the tech sector, particularly in programs that where the quote innovator is a much smaller company with much larger clients, it becomes contract R&D. They go to the customer says, hey, I really need work or help in this area, and I'm willing to pay you for it, right? And they call it co-innovation, but it's really contract R&D. And that's fine. For a lot of companies, that's a business model that works, right? But that's not co-innovation. That is contract R&D. The other that I run across a lot is people are really focused on the R, the research side, with no plan for the D. Lots of organizations have their equivalent of a labs, right? So a bunch of researchers who are just focused on the R side of the R&D programs, right? So in this case, their focus is on R, right? Remember, I'm calling this co-innovation. Innovation is all about the execution. Ideas without execution are a hobby. To turn something into an innovation, it requires execution. If you're focusing on just the R, it's not innovation. Just call it. It's joint research, right? We're going to do a joint research program with this company. It's not about innovation. The third area, and this is probably my most frustrating area, is that it turns into a PR or marketing effort, right? So some senior executives run around and they cut a deal and they're primarily focused on the press release saying, Acme Corporation and ABC Corporation are going to get together and they're going to do some magic thing, and we're going to jointly develop programs and technologies into this space. It's all about the press release. There's no commitment to really deliver. There's really been no thinking. There's been no time from the standpoint of really understanding the areas of focus. There's no mutual dependency for success, right? So it's a PR marketing effort. In these cases, people have gone out. In fact, the marketplace has become very calloused to these types of programs, right? So you go out there and you talk about it, and then nothing ever happens, right? People go, it's just another one of those things, right? And you can go out, do a Google search. You can look for co-innovation programs and announcements that have been made, and then go back and try to find the actual results or impacts. In my case is, if you follow these basic rules, right? 2 parties, 50-50 commitment, complementary interests, think of that Venn diagram, an agreed upon target, who, what, and how. Create the mutual dependency. Find innovation programs where you have this mutual dependency, and then launch a real product. Whether, in my case, it was 24 months, it could be 36 months, whatever. But if you get that right, you get that mutual area of focus, the 50-50 resourcing, that codependency, and delivering real innovations, co-innovation programs can really ignite your organization and take you into market opportunities that you would never be able to achieve on your own, and therefore drive success for the overall organization. So take the time and get it right. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. To get more information both about how to do these co-innovation programs, but also how to apply everything from these podcasts, the best option is to pick up the book, Beyond the Obvious. It's my first book, just published, came out this last February, published by Hyperion, and covers a wide range of topics of how to, one, be personally more creative, but also how to put together and how to manage innovation teams, and how to think about innovation from the standpoint of your overall both career success and organizational success. I'd also appreciate you sending feedback both on the podcast or the book if you've happened to have read it. Send the feedback to feedback@philmckinney.com. You can also find the Kill Innovations community. It's over. We have pages over on LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+. You can find the links over at philmckinney.com. You can also find links there to connect directly with me if you want to connect on LinkedIn or Facebook, Google+, or any of the other social media sites. All I ask is that you just please identify yourself as a listener to the podcast, because I get literally hundreds of requests a week from people. And if I know that you're a listener to the podcast, I'll accept your connection request right away, and we can get connected that way. The other is, I need some help. Can you help spread the word? The reason I do the podcast, and I've been doing the podcast now, it'll be coming up almost on 7 years here in another couple of weeks, is a way to pay it forward. I was the beneficiary of a phenomenal mentor right out of college by the name of Bob Davis. And later in life, when I asked Bob how I could pay it back for the time and energy and the advice and, you know, the critiques that he gave me that were just so helpful in my career, when I asked him how I could pay it back, he mentioned the fact that I couldn't, and that my task then was to really pay it forward, find a way to share my expertise with others later in life. And really, that's what drives me to be doing this podcast now, going on 7 years, along with writing the blog and et cetera. What I need is your help. Help me pay it forward by spreading the word. Tell others about it. Link to the blog. Share the podcast information with people within your organization. So help me out by helping spread the word. If you have ideas for future podcasts, topics that you specifically would like for me to address, questions you might have, challenges you're running in within your own organizations, or how do you become more personally creative, send them to me and I'll include them in the future podcast. I'm working on kind of the next 30 to 60 days of show plans. I would love to have your input. Send me those emails to feedback@philmckinney.com. And again, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.